Hi, everybody. My name is Ramel Wallace, and I'm the CEO of the Holyfield, an organization that focuses on creativity and identity. Today, you're going to be watching Precious, an 18-year-old high school student, dissect the fire next time. And this is so she could take from the wisdom of James Baldwin and apply it to her PIQs. This is a writing assessment that the UCs require. So we figured that we come in and help her in that process. Thank you to Bob Dominguez. Thank you to Huron Hughes. Thank you to the Hill Street Country Club and Good Faith Gallery, which helped us distribute these books across San Diego County. And I was able to send a few of the books just across the country. And we were able to give these books to the students that needed them so that they could read it. And then we held a book club, and Precious was the host. So please enjoy watching Precious explain the fire next time. Peace.
Okay, so I have an introduction for this part and just kind of like a summary of what I really thought this whole chapter was about and what came up for me as I just read how he wanted to send the message, like the messaging that he created to his nephew. So I really took it as like knowing what to believe and what not to believe, not just letting. Well, I'm thinking of in terms of their great grandfather. That if you read the first chapter, it explains that he was already, his life was over before he even died because he believed what white people said was true. And that really stuck with me, with just like keeping that with me as I read the other parts of that chapter. And I think it was just a matter of that, just saying, don't believe what's just said, like explore explore besides that. And so I also interpreted it as like the keys to get out of the dungeon. Like the dungeon shook was really like at the end of that first chapter, he explains that his chains were broken, and it really was a metaphor to, like, for me, like this first chapter gave me a whole like concept of how America is ran that I haven't really gotten a chance to explore. Like just the black and the white, and just black being whatever like perfection picture it is, and that's the life that we were kind of forced in as black people. And so um, like I really seen this as a way to navigate through that, the chains being slavery, and the place being the white world. And so like the keys was to get away from slavery, and then how to operate in a white world. So I feel like with that, like with the three pieces, like believing what was just said, knowing that you're being released from like literal chains, and you're having to navigate the white world that now is made available to you to a certain extent, because everything just seems so preset for black people like since the beginning of our time. So there's that. Yeah, literally that was what I wanted to say, was that this world just feels preset. Like since I've read this book and just kind of had the perception of like what he was telling his nephew, I just had a real realization that this world wasn't made for blacks to succeed in any way, and that we literally have to have cheat codes to navigate this world that we were placed into, to do like basically white man's work. And then I don't know, it's just a really interesting concept. But yeah, that was my ramble. Sorry, it turned into a ramble.
No, that's beautiful. I love that. You can see that there's keys and there's cheat codes to it. So a lot of those things are just going to be, ways to radically love yourself and radically accept yourself. But in some sense, you have to be radical in the things that you do, even if it's just loving yourself in a radical way, because the world is telling you not to. So you might as well, it's going to help you to love yourself. And he's kind of, yeah, he's definitely talking about that. So no, that's not a ramble. That's great. That's a great insight on there.
And
We go
so,
into this quote right here. Um,
yes.
Tell us about it.
So, let me read the quote. You really are from another era, part of what happened when the Negro left the land and into what late Franklin Fraser called the cities of destruction. That's on page 4. That's where you can find that. And who, when I read this, I it was just a moment of like, I don't know. It was very interesting because I'm reading a book called The Warmth of Other Suns, and it's about the Great Migration of Black people from the South to the North. And what that meant for a Black person was like more opportunities, no signs of that said we're segregated. And there was just like a falsified like image of what it would be going to the North for Black people. There was a lot made available to Black people like in the North now, but I connected this with another book, and I thought of what that meant for like Southern people moving to um, the North. Knowing James Baldwin, he grew up in Detroit. Am I correct? I feel like Detroit, or he was there at some point.
It was either Detroit or Harlem. I want to say
Harlem.
it's Harlem.
Oh, it's Harlem.
Yeah, I
Harlem.
want to say it's Harlem. But
Yeah.
definitely a city of destruction, especially
Yeah.
around the time.
I realized that as I've been reading this other book where there's alcohol and wine and this family that's coming from the South that's like just trying to fit in and make ends meet. There's like people coming into their home with alcohol and all these different things that are influencing. And the city was just so big that it was like literally cities of destruction of families. And so um, I thought about that part. I thought about how life could change in one of these cities of destruction, like California, or back then, what that meant for a Black person coming from the South to the North was a whole different set of experiences that were more available to us, but still also like looking looking to have our downfall in some way. And so I really connected this with today's society as this just spoke to me like as like blatant racism and segregation is no longer the thing, but we see this within stereotypes and like implicit bias is our fight from destruction. I took the meaning of this quote in so many different ways. I took it as like what destruction meant. I think about living in San Diego and like we're so diverse, but then like there's so many things that are holding us back that are kind of invisible that you just walk into and just like have to live with, like stereotypes and implicit bias are our fight from destruction in today's society. Like that's what leads white officers trying to like justify them killing a Black man just because he looks a certain way. Those are the implicit bias that allows us to have a president like we do.
Yeah.
And I think back to that, it's a sense of identity and belonging that we have to find within ourselves as like Black people since the beginning of time. And so I thought of those cities as just of destruction when a Black person went from the South to the North. It was really like a search for identity and belonging. And so I really had that connection. I have like so much more, but I want to hear other people's like things right now, what people are thinking of, or I can continue because I could talk for a very long time.
What do you think about that, Nas? Did anything pique your interest on what Precious was saying?
Uh, yes, I do agree about there's a it be the world so, most of the time be holding us back of what we can do, and yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of dissect it because, yeah, I discovered that my family left the South, Pensacola, Florida, and they moved to Barrio Logan in the 60s. So it was during the second part of the Great Migration. And this is the biggest migration in North American history. You're talking about all the slaves going to like New York, going to California. And like Precious was saying, we were actually searching for identity and opportunity. And there was lack in all of those resources. We thought we were going to not be dealing with those same oppressions. They were just redesigned to be invisible. Something like redlining, which it was basically segregation, and it continued it to where people live at, and the communities that are allowed to function there, whether it's food deserts, not great education systems, lead in the water, being by highways and by things like NASCO, where the pollution is bad, where you can't necessarily see like an identity, and you can't necessarily see these silent things that are still killing us in our communities. And we weren't able to find those actual things. We moved from one city of destruction to another city of destruction with a new design element. And, a lot of people don't know, but James Baldwin, he lived in Paris for a good amount of his existence. He felt like he had to basically leave the dungeon. Like that's the metaphor. Like the dungeon is America. Like if you're still here, you can't leave the dungeon. You just went to the other side of the dungeon and you're not actually free. You haven't actually reached your goal. So he actually left the dungeon and went to Paris and felt like he had a better lens to talk about the Black American experience.
Oh, I have something there. Oh, I had made the connection.
What do you think? What was the connection?
I had something in my notes that was just about like they defined the communities that were available to Black people as the ghettos, and the definition of a ghetto is a part of a city occupied by a minority group, and usually in a ghetto there's like one demographic of people. And just the fact that this world wasn't created to make it easy for Blacks, and in the communities, the ghettos that they place us in, they hold us down in, not many people make it out to survive, to move on from that community. So even James Baldwin being able to move to like Paris is a huge thing that I've just realized, like, not many people were able to do that. Like, you made it from one place to another, and then it was either like you had to adjust to those circumstances and not be able to dream any bigger because, oh man, whoa.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just like, I'm just happy I made that connection.
Interesting that it almost seems like you have to already have made it to get out. Hendrix had a similar trend. He had to go to Europe to a hipper, more accepting scene. Miles Davis was assaulted by police officers, left for Europe, and that's where you see Miles in Berlin. Then Miles goes electric, leads to Witch's Brew. I even think about it today. I think about leaving for a different country at times, just so I can get a business loan or something. I think also the cities of destruction, and this is again kind of getting ahead, where what it is to be Black is no longer what it is to be Black. It's the stereotypes that others have associated with being Black. Our diet is no longer our own. Our habits are no longer our own. Our last names are no longer our own. Our first names are no longer our own. So these cities of destruction can also be cities of the destruction of your identity, which a lot of people at that time thought integration could have actually been the worst thing to happen to Black people. There were more Black-owned businesses per capita before integration than ever after integration, even today. And so the cities of destruction could be to your morals, to your way of living, to your identity, your personality, your person. This is something that has been, it's been taken from us and we've been fed a new one. And by telling us that we're going to integrate you, it's like when he says that it's been fed to us as they have to accept us, when really it's we have to accept them. Well, 400 years later, we're still looking to them to accept us. So we act like them. We take their names. We take their jobs. We take their money. We take whatever they will give us. And I think that eventually destroys your identity by destroying your confidence. You destroy self. You destroy everything that comes out of self. And it's yeah, to think that we left something that now is unrecognizable to us. We have almost no semblance of our history outside of this place. So that when one of us does something great, we're considered a good Black person. We're not, who knows what we were prior to our new perception based on our color. Color is an invention in the Renaissance. So these cities of destruction, I think, destroyed the Black identity by integrating us into something that wasn't ever meant to be ours, or in any manner of the word.
Yeah, I feel you. It makes me think of the idea of, migrating to the wrong places,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a self-discovery, a self-migration is it's something that's necessary to do,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like you even feel it in his face, even how we began this part of the conversation. He has to make it to find this self, and his realization. I feel like his face is saying this, like, we can't all make that migration to go to Paris. The majority are going to be in a different place, so they're going to have to find some type of self-migration and identity to freedom. That's going to be their freedom, the discovery of their identity. Because look, I'm out here, but everybody can't make it to Paris. Everybody's not going to have this opportunity. What are the people in the hood gonna do?
And I even think that in the quote, the main quote, my dungeon rattled and my chains flew off. So my area of interest tends to be in quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and the way that correlates to spirituality in the brain. And the way he says, the very time I thought I was lost, my dungeon shook and my chains fell off. Well, when you lose your identity based on perception, often you feel lost. I used to think that I was a complaining person, maybe not smart enough, definitely not as smart or capable as my peers with less resources. I lost that self. And for a while, I did feel as though I had lost a part of my identity. I was lost. You lose identity and suddenly what do you have? But that's when you realize you're free to invent and to create exactly what you are. And I think that that I can't remember the scientist, he said that the flower is the enlightenment of the plant. It is a completely different being coming from the plant. It is a beautification and a different material altogether. And when you lose yourself, and in this case it was a bad thing, it was the self that whites had placed on him, he was free. And
Okay.
yeah.
I want to get into the next quote that Precious picked out, but that made me think that, oh wow, as we get closer to freedom, we're gonna feel more and more lost because we don't know what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
We know more about what freedom isn't than what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's go to this next one.
Okay, I'm looking at the time, and it's time went by so fast. It's so crazy, but I'm thinking on this quote. I didn't put the page number. I'm sorry about that. But it's, if you know whence you came, there's no limit to where you can go. And this goes back to what was being shared earlier about um, the chains being lost and like what that means. And I this one stuck with me because I thought about like how my drive for serving my community and um, the reasons why I go about like trying to implement support in any community, and especially the communities that are seen as the ghetto, whatever that means. But I think about what type of person is raised in the ghetto, like all the experiences that someone that has. I think the financial thing is not just the thing that holds somebody in a community like that, obviously, as the way James Baldwin explains it. And it's kind of just like, I think that plays a huge factor in defining what could be available to you, because once again, I told you all that like this all feels, our life feels preset. And he's obviously saying right here that there's really no limit once you find yourself and you know exactly where you came from, and you can obviously imagine where you're going. And so I really took this quote because I thought about like what I want to do for my family and like what it took for me to realize that I came from this and I want to do this because this is where I came from. And I thought about like upward mobility of wealth in a generation. Um, I thought of this in the sense that like it could just be wiped away very easily. I what did I want to say about this one? I I don't know. I was thinking with this one that I know that I came from an upbringing where my family was most definitely hit by the the crack pandemic in the 80s. Like growing up, I was told stories that my grandma invented something and made like $500,000 from it, and they were living luxury. And like a matter of like 20, 30 years, all of that upward mobility and that wealth being made in that generation of my family, like trickled down to being nothing. And I think it had me realize like this is what happened in my family, so I know it's possible to get there. Like I know it's possible that I can achieve like this amount of great, like whatever it was for them that I never got a chance to see. But I think for that, knowing that for me did something for my drive to want to give that upward mobility back and hold it, like, and cherish it and nurture it and not let our experiences and our traumas like hold us back, hold my family's generations back. Like I want to make a whole complete full 180 change in my family's like history. That's the hope, that's the dream. And so I feel like I've had some connection with myself that has helped me realize like my family's history is this, and I know how far and what I need to do to get to that place and more. Like those are the ways that I'm dreaming of like um, my life, and that's how I connected to this. I don't know if that made any sense.
That makes perfect sense. Like you're actually very profound with how you see this, and especially it not just being about reaching a financial freedom, because that's going to take a lot of steps. You know, you might reach this one generational wealth, and then you're one mistake from going back to the cities of destruction.
Yeah.
Like you're not actually out of the cave. You're still so close to it that you're going to have to believe in yourself to an entire new type of capacity to continue this down for generations and generations and generations. So it's like, so it is generational now. It's not just now, but it's generational. Like it's more than one. And I know the time is going, so We can go to the next one as well because I love the pictures that you chose of him. They're so expressive. He's such an expressive person. You
Yeah.
kind of see his eyes analyzing the room. He chose some really good
Pictures.
pictures.
So with this one, I took a lot from this one. It's they are in effect still trapped in a history which they do not understand, and until they understand it, they cannot be released from it. And that's on page 8, and that gets into the people that we're accepting into our lives. That in terms of how he was speaking about it was like white people and being in the white world and like it allowing them to be accepted into your life instead of the other way around and wanting their acceptance. And so I connected this with just thinking about all the work that our white Americans have to do to understand the history of America and the country that they made and how they did it. I had a connection that just this country, like he just spoke in the terms a lot of times in this country, and I kept trying to like think back on like which country, like let me make sure this is the US, like America. Like I had to like remind myself in moments because I'm like it's almost other world likely, like the way he was speaking of it, and then having like to connect it back sometimes. It's just like this is the world we've lived in, and this is the things we have to analyze about ourselves. So I would say with this one, like I really connected it to like today's society and the uprisings that we're having right now, and like seeing the small steps that people are taking, like our fellow white people like marching with us since they seen a black man like obviously be harmed all over the internet. And that even that has been something awesome because we have online movements that are like ran by black people educating white people about their history, which is America, that is built off of the graves of Native Americans and black people building this country on our backs. And so like really just having I don't know what people have to do to like really get to this place where they like can be released from it, because I don't know, there's I just think about like learning your own history and just understanding the fact that your ancestors are build a country off of these things, and you have to recognize it and do work to do better.
I would love to say, I'm going to say, thank you so much for watching this. If you would like to subscribe to the page and follow us, please do so and check out the website at theholyfield.org. Precious, you're amazing. Hope you get into these UCs. We cannot wait to find out what happens, but we know that you're going to be successful in whatever you do, and we're just happy to be along for the ride and a piece of the process. But you're really going to hit the home run because you're amazing. You're an amazing person, and we really appreciate you. Have a great one.